Minister Tancoo, are you here with us?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good morning. Good morning.
We would
And
like
And
to
good
see
morning.
you.
And good morning to your listeners and viewers as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
thanks so much for joining us on the Breakfast Show. We appreciate you taking the time to speak with us this morning.
I appreciate the offer. Thank you very much.
All
Morning,
right.
Minister. Minister, is
Good
your
morning.
camera? Can you put on your camera? We would love to see you.
I don't mind, but I'm trying to get organized to leave home right now. So give me a second. Let me sit so I look presentable, and then I would like to go off camera as I move into my car, etc., to drive off.
All right,
Yep,
no
is that
problem.
all right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
So,
fine. That's
we
fine.
would
yeah.
want to feel we have an AI minister now. We want to see the real person.
I hear you. I hear you. The AI in this case would actually mean actually intelligent, but we'll leave that for now. Hi, good day.
It'll be said beyond.
Anyway, thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
Anyway.
yes,
Right. So I am actually preparing to leave home right now to go to office because I have a few meetings, again, based on the budget. So hence you will see me busily getting forward. And I've had interviews from 6 a.m. this morning, and we're still going.
Okay,
Oh,
good.
okay.
We appreciate the time. All right.
Thank you very much.
Well, I guess
Richard makes a very convincing argument. Very, very convincing. So, yes.
telling me 20 years now I'm working with him. I should know.
Correct.
Anyway,
All right, gentlemen, let's get it.
we
Yeah,
can
yeah.
start with the poll question, though, Minister. We had asked
Yes.
our poll question this morning based on the allocations that were made in local government to the UNC
And
level.
40 out of 44 said, the vast majority said that we should explain why there's a disparity, why there's a reduction. I
Yes.
can tell you that there is a disparity, and that's part of the reasons for some of the changes you would have seen. In 2025 and before, we would have seen, and I would have highlighted geographic discrimination based on the allocation of resources. So we had resources being allocated to several corporations that were in a much better state than in others. We have corporations that preside over vast acreages that have obviously more infrastructural needs, etc., that was severely underfunded. What this is an attempt to create a balanced system where the needs are greatest. We are trying to target the resources to those. So yes, there will be some increases and there will be some decreases, but those decreases are based on needs. Now, in the last fiscal year, which is what everybody's comparing, including your good selves, 2025, there was a substantial amount of, and the Minister of Local Government will speak to it when she gets into the budgetary debate. We'll speak to it. In the last budget allocation, we had a substantial amount of employment, short-term contract employment taking place at regional corporations. We had a significant amount of unproductive expenditure taking place in regional corporations. But what we had were corporations where there was tremendous need for infrastructure, particularly infrastructure, not being given sufficient resources. You had Port of Spain, where all the roads are paved. They have drainage. Some of the drainage is not good because the corporation, Port of Spain Corporation, needs to answer for that, which is why Port of Spain floods so easily now. But some of Port of Spain has all the street lights, all the physical infrastructure in some of these corporations, Port of Spain and San Fernando in particular, less so Arima. But the physical infrastructure in those corporations are it's infinitely better than when you look at even Point 14. You look at the Pinal Regional Corporation, the Princestown Regional Corporation, the Mayaro Regional Corporations. And over the last 9.5 years, those corporations were denied access to funds continuously. Garbage collection became a crisis because they simply were not paying the government of the day at that time were not paying the suppliers. So what we are trying to do now is create a bit of a balance. Now, of course, if you had excessively expended and supported one side before, and by one side I mean a corporation, and starved the others, by raising the others and reducing this, you're trying to create a balance. It's not a victimization. It is an attempt to create a balance, and that is what is missing. Persons are using 2025 as the example. I challenge them to look at what has happened between 2015 and 2025, sum it up. on all sides. The Minister of Local Government will do it for you. So you see the disparity in the allocation of resources. We need to stop. We need to stop pointing fingers like that and start looking at the transparency and the accountability and the fairness and balance that we're looking at achieving.
All of those are valid points, but you could see why it would come across
of course
in the way that some people are seeing it. And I particularly want to make the case for ARIMA, because you talked about the infrastructure in San Fernando and Port of Spain, but ARIMA has been suffering from a lack of streetlights not being fixed. And of course, ARIMA has a pretty expansive thing. So even though the mayor hasn't said anything, I'm making an appeal for ARIMA, because I'm from ARIMA, and they need not to be, they have got the biggest deduction of $9 million. And I think that should be revisited.
Again, I think the Minister of Local Government will show you the per capita and per square foot or square acre cost, and I think you'll get a better idea of what we're looking at. But street lighting and so on really doesn't fall under the regional corporation. They assist. That falls under the
issue of roads, and even though ARIMA itself and its boundaries, they may seem, whatever the perspective is from the policymakers, you have to understand that La Quetta and all of those south of ARIMA utilize ARIMA as if ARIMA is the hub. So it's a specific case. It is the hub. For Santa Rosa, for Blanchisseuse, and all of those areas, because in terms of the constituency, the boundaries go all up there. But a lot of those people converge and utilize ARIMA and the roads and a lot of the resources in ARIMA. So I'm just making a case for that $9 million deduction should be revisited for ARIMA.
I want to suggest, Richard, I agree with you, but I also want to point you into a different direction. Over the last 9.5 years, the PNM has been in office, and over the last 9.5, the PNM has been in government, and over the last 9.5 years, PNM controls the ARIMA Borough Corporation. And they have done what they needed to do, or have not done what they should have done. Which is to ensure that services reach the people of Trinidad and Tobago. But it's not just the allocation. There will be an increased insistence that monies allocated for projects are used for projects. There will be the increased insistence that money that is allocated to the regional corporations are managed effectively and efficiently. That is not happening now. We have situations where corporations can find money to splurge on festivities, etc., but not enough money to spend on fixing roads, providing infrastructure, which is what their function is. And that is my problem, The money is there. I believe there's sufficient money allocated to the regional corporations now, today. What is required is ensuring that there's efficiency and effectiveness of spend, that there's value for money. And right now, over the last 3 years, we have not gotten that. What we need is proper monitoring of the money.
All right, I wanted to move on to other aspects of the budget.
If you don't mind, I would like to go off camera as I move as well, if you don't mind.
All right.
Before we go off the subject of local government, Sam on record as saying local government reform is a hoax. Wouldn't this be the ideal time now to deal with local government reform in its entirety?
Okay, you're preempting the Minister of Local Government's contribution to the budget. But yes, that is the short answer. Yes.
Okay. Well, that's about the best news I hear from local government. Well, I've been hearing it for so long. It's left to be seen if it actually takes place, because that is what
I take that too. I take that to implementation. We have an implementation deficit in this country. We have a PSIP, a public sector investment program, which is about infrastructural development, where the rate of implementation is about 30 or 40% maximum, which means 60% of the work that they said they were going to do, money was allocated, money was spent, and the work was not done. Implementation deficit. All of that has to change. We are assigning money now in hard conditions. You know how it is in your household, right? In your household, when you have $100 and you have plenty of money and you spend it, you could spend it. But when you have $20, you have to manage that carefully. At the start of the month, you could buy KFC, and at the end of the month, you have to make sure you buy food. You have to buy food to cook. That's where we are now. We have to actually manage each cent down to the cent. That is what we have to do. It's about management. It's about implementation with effectiveness. It's about monitoring continuously. And I think that in all fairness and frankness, if we could do this, we can end up in a situation where we have better value for money, and the wastage that currently exists at the local government level will be treated with severely.
Well, I hope those are not just words, Minister, because as I said, we've been talking about local government reform for ad nauseum. It's tiring sometimes, and it needs to be fixed because all issues at the end of the day are in fact local issues. So once we fix that, we're going to have less people complaining about so many different things in the country.
Well, you have to understand our policies are people-based. And you're correct. You're making my point. I should leave, but you're making a better point than me. What has happened is we are people-centered government. And the local government is the first touch of the governance to the people. People relate to local government. The issues of flooding, crime, all of that is at a local government level. So if you could treat with those clearly, then that is what the government should be doing first. The national projects, the mega projects, the national lending policies, etc., are all supposed to be designed to bring services to the people directly. And that's what we are going to be doing.
As we are talking about people,
hold us to account. Richard knows my cell phone number now and will be able to find me at all kinds of ungodly hours. But hold us to account. That is what a caring population who wants to see Trinidad and Tobago first, a patriotic population, will do. And a patriotic government such as we are will be willing and must be willing to accept critiques, criticism, and recommendations.
Yeah. As you talk employment, Minister, what's the plan for re-employing or employing people in the fact that 40, 30, 40, we hear all kind of figures, would have lost their jobs through the CPEP, URP, reforestation? What's the immediate plan for that?
Well, I think you have to wait until the Prime Minister speaks, and I'm predicting, because I have a more than fair idea of what is coming. When the Prime Minister speaks, immediately after she speaks, employment starts rolling out. Structures have been put in place to start employment almost immediately. But that is going to be not just URP and CPEP, but this is employment across the board, because when people get jobs, they spend in the economy. When they spend in the economy, it's called in economics a multiplier effect. It generates on itself and it builds on itself, and that is what we need to see the economy grow. But in terms of employment, I think people want to move away from the gimme and the dependency syndrome that we've been in for the last umpteen years, where who gives you a little end here. You must have a party card to join. That foolishness must stop. We can't have a system where a temporary form of measure lasts you 5 and 6 years. You're working in a temporary measure. You can't go to the bank to get a loan. You can't invest in a car for yourself. You're living day to day because your salary is meager. You're in a dependency syndrome. What we are trying to do is break that. We are trying to create proper, well-paying jobs so people can go to the bank and take a little loan to fix their homes, to buy a car, to improve their lives, to pay for their children's education. It can no longer be acceptable that we have persons working, but they're underemployed. They're working for less than minimum wage. When you check it up, they're working for survival only. They're living day to day. And the day they get sick, everybody's in crisis because they have no money to go to the next day. They can't afford to pay a doctor. They go to a hospital, their children suffer. That kind of lack of care for people ends. More jobs will be announced, and you don't have long to wait. The budget debate starts tomorrow. You will hear the opposition say the same thing, and acceptable. They want to know where the jobs are coming from. They want to know where the revenues are coming from. Once we start the employment rollout, as we have proposed to do, and you will hear the Prime Minister rolling it out, I think it will be citizens will be hard pressed. Just by way of reference, there are 8,000 jobs, vacancies in the government service. 8,000 jobs. And there are tens of thousands of jobs where people can actually contribute to the development of the country. And those are the jobs that the Prime Minister will speak directly to during this budget debate.
I wanted to touch on the private sector, Minister Tancoo, in terms of, because the private sector is also a driver of economic growth, obviously, and jobs.
Yeah, I know
you're coming off camera, but you can listen to my question.
Yes,
So the issue of the custom duties, container fees, the electricity rates, etc., that it's now being applied to commercial and industrial customers. Are you worried that is going to dampen business confidence and also maybe curtail economic investment because it becomes more expensive? And might it not have been more productive to tax profits rather than the route that your policymakers and you have chosen? What's your take on that?
Excellent question. Excellent question. Excellent question. A lot of what we are taxing now, where the rates are increasing, are profits. The asset levy, the business surcharge, the landlord surcharge, business surcharge. Those are income streams that are not necessarily at this point subjected to taxation. The container fees, those fees, if you check all of those added together, it's a minuscule cost. Literally, it is introductory prices that we are using at this point. Introductory in the sense that they are at the lowest possible level. What we are doing is we are asking everybody to pay a fair share to the development of the country, the development needs. We need to spend money. We need to raise money to spend. This is the softest way that we could have found to do it. So there's going to be the possibility of banks passing on the charges to customers. That is a fact. There's the possibility of landlords passing on charges to customers. That is a fact. There's a possibility of importers passing on the. So I'm sure these are the questions and concerns that are being raised directly by your listening audience. What I could tell you is we are asking banks, we are asking all of these industries, these enterprises, to pay a fair share, and the fair share is minimal. But I'm also asking citizens not to take things for granted, not to simply lay back and allow businesses to take advantage. Citizens, the power of the citizenry is in their ability to make an educated choice. So if a bank raises its costs, go elsewhere. And we can check online now, we can check to see where best options are for transactions. And if you find that the banking sector is not treating you fairly, then we also have other local credit unions and so on that you can go to. Banks have been declaring super profits, but you can't get a toilet. You can't go to the bank and get a toilet. That is because the banking community now has become focused on profit margins only. What we are asking them to do now is to come on board to let us all build the country. Start becoming a little bit more citizen focused. Because I will tell you this, if we do what we are proposing to do right, and the banking sector accepts their role in contributing to national development, and there is national development, you know what will happen to the banks? Their revenue streams will skyrocket. The banks will continue to make more money. So we are giving them the opportunity at this stage to help us build an economy where they will make more money too.
I'm assuming that this type of discussion was held with the banks before, because you know the record we have here is that banks more or less align with one another.
Oh yes. Yes, I have not had substantial discussions with the banking sector because I will tell you this, nobody wants to pay more taxes. Nobody wants to give up some of their revenue. Nobody does. I am challenging the banking sector. And like I said, we could leave it as, well, this always happens and this always happens. Citizens of Trinidad and Tobago need to take a stand, as they have done on other issues, need to take a stand and demand that they get fair treatment. And you can't tell me, I have gone to the bank and I literally went just to see what the cost of a transaction is. And the cost of a withdrawal of $20, I don't want to call it figure, because you may be able to figure it out yourself, but the cost of the withdrawal of $20 in a bank using a bank card, I mean, that is ridiculous. It is ridiculous that I have to spend the kind of money I'm spending on fees. And when I ask a bank to contribute a minuscule amount to national development, that they may pass it on. I am asking citizens to pay attention to your transactions and to hold the sectors to account. I'm also asking the banking sector to pay their fair share now. That's it. It's a pay their fair share.
Yeah.
They also want, and I want to say it again, the banks want the same things. The owners of the banking sector want better roads. They want lower cost electricity. They want reliability of water supply, because they also live in Trinidad and Tobago generally. So all the things that they want, I'm asking them to contribute more too.
Yeah, and I know in keeping on the business question, I know you talked at length in your budget statement about the modernization of the customs department and the upgrading of the software, etc., etc. Is this, in your view, going to make the business is going to increase business efficiency, especially with regard to importers? That's one, because a lot of times I know businesses complain about the port and how long things take to be cleared, and the additional fees they incur when that happens. And also, why shouldn't, well, I mean, you're new to the job, but is there any consideration to the minimum fee for Trinidad and Tobago imports, especially people importing on Amazon and all eBay and Temu and whatever, that if you have a package that's worth 20 US or less, or, you know, I know the Jamaicans have a de minimis and Barbados has a de minimis, because it frees customs from clearing such packages of such low value. Is there any consideration in terms of things like that?
Well, let me answer the last question first. The correct answer to that, the easy answer to that is yes. We are looking at every possible way of improving the system. And one of the ways of improving the system is removing what may be considered nuisance taxation. Because you are correct, some of these things, if you're importing $50, you have to go through the same process and considerations as if you're importing $5,000 and $500,000. So yes, there is some consideration being paid now to treating with the minimum fees. That is a fact. That is happening now. It exists now. It's just not as significantly large as we would like it to be. Yeah. So there's consideration for that, but I can't do everything at the same time. I must also shelter the revenue needs. I must balance the revenue needs with what exists now. And I also don't want to. Let me say it differently. I want to increase efficiency. So I'm answering this like the first question. I want to increase efficiency at the port before we provide some of the concessions that are required in addition to what is being done at the port. You will see improved efficiency. That is the function of this. And if you see improved efficiency, you should see a reduction in the penalties and in the costs applied to persons who are importers. Importers have been complaining on a continuous basis, rightly so, about the inefficiencies at the port, rightly so, because those result in costs. You have huge demurrage costs. You have delays in receiving the shipments. And during the Christmas season, for example, if you have a delay, you lose the season, you lose substantial revenue. So we are working on fixing the port. We are working on fixing the customs and excise. Once those things happen, you will see a reduced cost of doing business and therefore an improved cost of doing business. And we could then look at the other issues.
Yeah. The issue of this is a question from one of our listeners, actually. The private pensions and it not being taxed. There was no mention, or I don't know if I missed it, with regard to government pensioners and what is going to be their status. Are they not also going? Is income tax also going to be removed from government retirees as you're doing with private pensions?
I have to double check that. I don't have that answer off the top of my head because I'm not aware that we still have those taxation on government. You mean like NIS pensions and so on?
No, but retirees in the government service would get pensions. Sometimes it would be below the taxation threshold of, I think, 7,000 and less. But you also have those who are above 7,000 who are taxed, and which is their pension. As they get older and older. And I know on the platform, the now Prime Minister would have said that government pensioners and private pensions would not be taxed. Actually, both parties were saying kind of the same thing on that point. But in your budget statement, you mentioned private pensions, but you didn't specifically mention government pensioners. So I think they just wanted that cleared up. But I don't know if you're not clear on what the position is at this point.
I am not clear on what the position is. So in my wrap up, I will treat with some of these things, and if I get the information before that, I will issue something just to clarify it.
Yeah.
I will raise that. I'm actually going to be on the way to office just now. I will raise that with my team, and perhaps the best way to treat with this would be not to wait on the budget debate and just issue a clarification if required.
Minister, I would like to just find 1 minute, Wendell. I'm eagerly waiting to hear what the Prime Minister herself has to say about the job creations and URP and CPEP. I compliment the government on making the step to stamp out wastage, corruption wherever it is it is seen. This area that you all started with CPEP and URP, are there other areas that the government is going to be looking at also for reform, just to continue to remove this wastage that has been taking place? Because there are a number of areas where the same kind of thing takes place in other areas.
No, the short answer to that is yes, it must be so. Every minister has been challenged by myself and by the Honourable Prime Minister, both at Cabinet and elsewhere, to eliminate every sort of wastage, to identify and eliminate, and every minister is going to be held accountable. Just for clarification and for help, one of the committees that was being established at the Office of the Prime Minister, the only function of that committee is to ensure that the budget expenditure is implemented as it should be. I said before, I believe I may have said it here, we have an implementation deficit where you are accustomed hearing politicians promise, and then we have 30% of the PSIP being used and 70% spent, but you see no value for it. What we propose to do is ensure that we get value for money across the board. And by definition, I raised it in the budget debate, $5 billion per year was lost in contracts awarded by ministries, and that couldn't happen, by the way, in which nobody knew who the recipients were. No KPIs were done, no key performance indicators were done. Nobody knew what the criteria was to award the contracts, and nobody even knew if the contracts were actually done. $5 billion. I just posted a $3.8 billion deficit. If we had that $5 billion clean, we would not have even had the deficit. But that's $5 billion lost in criminal misconduct. And that is not the mismanagement which also exists. So I think if we fix some of those, our revenue stream may remain the same, but our expenditure pattern will be much more accountable.
Minister, I just wanted to bring up this thing because I know the orange economy, the creative sector, but of course, I'm just now looking at an industry that I'm heavily involved in. And the electricity rate increase for commercial and industrial customers. I know that schools and health care, and I think religious institutions were exempted from that increase in the electricity rate. You could correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just lobbying that theaters which are state-owned be also included, because it affects the orange economy, which utilizes those theater spaces. So I just want to put that out there. You can ignore me, or you could take me.
No, let me answer that immediately. You mean like Napa and Sapa?
Napa, Sapa, Naparima Bowl, things like that. Queen's Hall.
Well, I share that view as well. I think by almost by definition, they must be similarly treated. They must now also be so. Even without prime ministerial involvement, I could tell you that my prime minister is very interested in performance in the development of the art sector, the creative sector. And yes, I share that view. That is not a difficult prospect to include.
Okay, great.
It may have flipped us in statement, but because we couldn't say everything. But yes, that makes sense.
Yeah. Minister, recently
you got one win already, Richard. One win. Congratulations, well done.
Minister, recently it was reported in the newspapers that you only got $200 from a bank to travel. How is the government planning to treat with this issue of Forex that has been a bane on our society for quite some time now? What's the plan?
This is the foreign exchange?
Yes, the foreign exchange.
Forex issues.
All right. So the Forex issues are embedded in Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you. The foreign exchange issues are embedded in Trinidad and Tobago. Unfortunately, we've spent a long time avoiding treating with the disparities because those who were required to treat with it were the beneficiaries of the disparities. Only one group, and I'm not saying things that you in the studio don't know or your listening audience doesn't know. Only one group of persons are able to access almost free sheet that the level of foreign exchange that we're talking about. Only one group. And that's unfair and it's unethical, but it's also bad for business. What is being done now is a review of the entire system. Now, that unfortunately can't happen at the snap of a finger. That takes a while because it's interlinked and interlocked. So we're doing multiple things. We are trying to generate new industries that will generate new revenue streams. We're trying to ensure via transfer pricing legislation and so on that those multinationals that are in the system contribute fairly as well to the revenue streams, especially in foreign exchange. Just by way of example, the figure that I found based on is that we were losing upwards of $17 billion in foreign exchange. This is not 17 billion foreign exchange US dollars, but $17 billion converted to US dollars on an annual basis from one stream of income, that was the natural gas sector, because of transfer pricing, failure to implement transfer pricing legislation. So if we treat with the existing facilities and just make sure that we cut out the leakages, because there are lots of errors and omissions. What we hide behind as errors and omissions when we treat with foreign exchange allocation, foreign exchange accounting, there are lots of foreign exchange that gets leaked through the system. So we are treating with that via transfer pricing legislation and by closer monitoring by the central bank. But that's existing structure. We are increasing the amount of businesses that will generate foreign exchange. That's one other way. We are going into a greater enhancement and development of the agricultural sector, which will involve import substitution. We are passing legislation right now, which will ensure that the BIR is much more effectively enhanced to pursue tax evaders, including foreign exchange generators. And then we are also pursuing a better management of the Exim Bank, which is what the small and medium-sized, small and medium-sized sector where they get the foreign exchange from. We are also, and I want to make that point, we are also going after the illegal gambling. Because why we go after illegal gambling is because that sector generates a substantial amount of money because they are involved in other kinds of criminal activities. That money is converted to US currency. And they pay an exorbitant rate for US currency. So they also now have created a market separate and aside from the regular market where persons can get the foreign exchange at the banks and they go to the black market. There's a gray market, which is different because this group actually has the cash and are buying foreign exchange at high rates to ship outside of Trinidad and Tobago. So by going after them, we are curbing that gray market from continuing to operate.
You know, Minister,
I've identified quite a few things.
But I've been hearing this talk about this economy and so on since Patrick Manning was alive and was Prime Minister. And it's never been dealt with. How does this government plan to deal with it? I think you quoted a figure of $9 billion with this illegal gambling and so on that's taking place.
Sorry, I just got a call that kind of popped us. Yeah, I didn't hear your questions. I apologize.
Right. No, I was saying that this issue of the illegal gambling and this economy that's generating income of $9 billion. We've been hearing about it since Mr. Patrick Manning was Prime Minister and alive. But nothing has been done about it. How do you plan to fix that?
Do something about it. That's what we plan to do. We are planning to do something about it. And I've laid it out in the budget what we plan to do. We are increasing enforcement. Let me give you an example, and this will clarify it. In Cunupia, in Chinchin Road in Cunupia, and I'm identifying specifically the area so you'll understand what the problem is. In Chinchin Road in Cunupia, about 100 meters away from the police station, there's a shop, and anybody could pass and check it now. I'm about to highlight them. That is offering 55 and 60 to 1 odds per playway. That is illegal. It's an illegal shop. They're not paying any taxes at all on their revenue streams. But they are happy to away from the police station. You know why it is that the police are unable to prosecute and persecute these individuals? Because the fine for this illegal activity is minuscule. It's less than $1,000. So it makes sense for them. It makes no sense for the police to prosecute it because these guys will simply pay the fine and go back and do the transactions again. What we are doing now is implementing a much higher fine, which will give the police the wherewithal to prosecute and persecute, to make it viable to prosecute and persecute these activities. And that will then bring persons away from illegal gambling. And if they are interested in gambling, they will go to the legal gambling, which is NSCB, which is state-owned, and which pays its dues and its taxes to the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago and contribute to our development, as opposed to contributing to illicit activity. So yes, there have been much talk. A lot of what we have in the budget is not new, you know. These things we have spoken about, and I have spoken about over the last few years. We've talked about it for a long time. What was always missing is there was the absence of political will to get it done. We are forced by necessity now, because of the financial situation that we have been placed in. We are forced by necessity now to ensure that we expedite all of these activities. It's not new. We are just going to be implementing because there's political will to make the change.
Minister, I just want to find out, because when we have all these special parliamentary committees and we watch these things on television and stuff, one thing that we always realize that the Auditor General Department, where accounting is concerned, is always 10, 12 years behind. If there's anything that is wrong with a body that is so far behind, I don't see anything that can be done to hold people to account in government agencies. What is being done to close that kind of gap and more accountability from the Auditor General to hold these ministries to account?
All right. The challenge with the Auditor General is the Auditor General has been identifying entities that have not supplied their accounts, audited accounts, for multiplicity of years. That is a failure of the boards of these entities. That's a failure of the boards to start with. I highlighted CAL, for example. CAL had a substantially large, I believe it's about 80-something persons in their audit department, but was not providing audited financial statements to the government of Trinidad and Tobago, to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. I had the opportunity to sit on the Public Accounts Committee. And you're very correct. The committee found on a regular basis that we were looking at accounts from the 20th century. We're in the 21st century, and we still have accounts outdated from since the 20th century. By the time those accounts come, the people who would have committed illegal activity, who would have been liable for negligence of duties, etc., those persons may have died, may have gone on, so they can't even be prosecuted. We were wasting time. What we have mandated boards to do now is to get up to scratch, come up as fast as humanly possible. And again, you would have heard this exact thing before. The problem is with CAL, for example, and I'm repeating CAL has not submitted audited financials for the longest of whiles. But the Minister of Finance then continued to approve loans to CAL totaling billions of dollars without proper accounting. That is madness. That is fiscal irresponsibility. This Minister of Finance is demanding that boards get with the program and insist on accounting for the monies that they are being allocated to. It's billions of dollars, It's billions of dollars. So I expect changes now, or heads will rule. There was a Sport TT judgment just recently, which placed the emphasis on boards of directors it held the boards of directors to account for actions being taken by the boards. So they can't, not just by the boards, but by the company. So they can't hide behind, well, I'm a director of a board, so I don't have to account. That madness stops already. It's stopped. We are demanding that boards account. But the state performance monitoring manual, there's a manual that has been provided for the longest while. It's dated 2011, I believe, for the purpose of accounting or bringing state boards accounts to the fore, of holding boards accountable for the billions that they spend. That system is outdated, and we are renewing that as well. I can assure you, my friend, I sat on the Public Accounts Committee, so I can assure you that I have identified a lot of those weaknesses. And if as Minister of Finance, I can't address all, but I can focus on correcting quite a few of them. One at a time, but quite a few of them will be corrected during my term of office, however long that lasts.
Yeah, I know we're coming close to the end of the interview, Minister Tancoo. I have just two questions left. I don't know if Wendell has any other questions, but the issue
I have a
of
comment.
the issue of the two oversight committees, I'm calling them. You have an economic resilience committee, I think, that you mentioned in the budget statement, and an oversight committee, I think, for anything over $50 million that you and the Prime Minister are going to sit on. I'm specifically interested in the economic resilience committee, and is that going to be populated with advisors? Because it kind of reminds me of the Economic Advisory Board that I think the last government had, and I think the economists and the people who populated it left in frustration, and it got disbanded because the advice was not taken. Is that a kind of similar mold in what you all are doing with the Economic Resilience Board or committee or whatever you call it?
But the short answer to your question is yes. The Economic Advisory Board, previous to that was the Economic Development Board, where we had a committee set up for the purpose of identifying projects that will develop Trinidad and Tobago. That's what this oversight committee is supposed to do. Look at projects that can develop Trinidad and Tobago in the long term. If the former government had taken some, and I'm privy to some of the proposals that were under consideration, substantial development was done. That is exactly how we propose to treat with some of the projects that we have seen that have been proposed and have been brought forward by interested individuals and invested in Trinidad and Tobago. So we are looking at creating what would effectively be a fast track mechanism for persons and businesses and entities willing to invest in Trinidad and Tobago. That is what that committee will do. So you're right. It resembles the Economic Development Board. It resembles that board because it's very similar. What we are looking at a project that will add to the development of the country, whether it be short term, medium term, or long term, on a continuous basis. So yes, I hope that that facility, and I can tell you already, there are lots of projects that are already coming my way. That project is that those boards will not be housed by political activists. It will not be governed by political activists, because what we want are professionals, persons with industry experience and expertise that will come together to evaluate properly projects to carry the country forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right.
And my last question is, how optimistic are you as a Minister of Finance that we will surmount these fiscal challenges, and when do you hope, I guess this might be an unfair question, that Trinidadians and Tobagonians can see the country moving forward with growth that means something to their pockets?
All right, so that's a two-part question. I am extremely confident. I'm extremely is an understatement. I'm superbly confident that Trinidad and Tobago will get on board. I have seen citizens suffer. I have seen citizens reach out. I've seen citizens hope and pray that they get a government that will simply take the relevant actions to protect them and to improve their lives. We are committed to do that, and I think we have started doing it as soon as we dropped into office. I identified a multiplicity of things in the budget speech that we have done in the first 150 days already. We are going to continue to do, and that is not on our budget. That was based on the budget of the former regime. You can imagine what we're going to do with our budget. What is required is proper implementation, and that's the function of the other committee, which will monitor the proper implementation of the budget plans and programs. With regards, I forgot the second question already. How soon? How soon?
Yeah.
Citizens have already started to see positive results. What I expect to happen is, as we roll out, you'll see more and more confidence in the economy, and they realize that we are really serious about opening Trinidad and Tobago to business. And I believe you will see results as early, economic growth as early as fiscal 2026.
Mm-hmm. Minister, I have one thing to say. I want to challenge you to make yourself available to the media as you have done this morning, especially to the breakfast show, because it's been a long time since we've spoken to a Minister of Finance. So thank you very much.
It is my pleasure. I could not engage you, in all honesty, I could not engage you previously because really, crafting and creating a budget that is realistic is a significant challenge. And I really spent a lot of time trying to get it done. We as a government spent a lot of time in each ministry trying to get our hands wet as it may be, to ensure that we were hands-on in our ministry so we could see where the weaknesses are, where the strengths are. A lot of that took a lot of time. And I did not want to be in a position where I gave you commitments which I did not believe I could keep, or I make statements without proper information from my colleagues. We are mandated to deliver now. I think now we have an overall national plan that we will develop and we will see going forward. It will be tweaked as we go along, as obvious. We'll fix things and we'll address weaknesses as we identify them. But I think that I can now make it easier. It will now be much easier to account to the population. And that's a requirement that I also have as a mandate, and we as a government have as a mandate from our Prime Minister, to continuously update and account to the population for the things that we are doing. We are not afraid of criticism. We are not afraid of confrontation. We are not afraid of recommendations. In fact, I am pleased that the amount of recommendations that we would have received, every minister would have received, as to the way forward and how we can get country running again, is testimony to the fact, I believe, that Trinidad and Tobago really wants the opportunity to breathe again and are willing to contribute to making that happen. So yes, I think you will see results very quickly, but I think you can be assured that you can find me easily now. Like I said, Richard reached out to me a while ago, but I just was not in the right place, and I think now we're in a better place where you have questions you can directly ask me now. What about this? You said you were going to do this at the government. We said we were going to do the other. Now you have specific KPIs, as it were, that you could ask about.
But we can't thump any desks, but you could go ahead and say when UNC wins, everybody wins.
But it has been a real pleasure. And as one of our listeners have said,
thank you very much.
As one of our listeners has said, the minister has won me over today. All right. So thank you so much. And excellent first time presentation of the budget.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Stay in touch. Feel free to reach out. If I can't take the call, you can also WhatsApp me. Like I said, Richard has my contact. I respond to my WhatsApp, as you could tell.
Yes, you do.
All right. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think sometimes I was almost frustrating you because of my constant messaging.
God bless you, Tobago, and thank you all. Have a great day, everyone.
All right. Thank you so much, Minister. We appreciate you taking the time to speak with us.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's because